As we hit the midway point for Heroes in Crisis as well as an annual for Justice League, there's a few new #1s that are coming out that we should probably talk about. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Preview Picks, the show where I go over the comic books that are coming out this Wednesday, give you an idea what they're all about, and whether there's something you should need to talk to your comic book shop about or not. Make sure you subscribe to get more of these, hopefully every single Monday. The first book that I want to talk about is Exiles #12 from Marvel Comics, and this is going to be the conclusion of this run, at least as far as I know. And overall, it's been a really interesting kind of journey with this ragtag crew of multidimensional characters from the Marvel Universe. Is it something that we're going to miss as we move forward? I don't necessarily know about that because I kind of fell off this series, but overall, the introduction to the characters and Saladin Ahmed's work on various other titles says that he should be doing something pretty good in the future, and we'll keep an eye out for that. Next, we can talk about Batgirl #31, which has the tagline of Batgirl for President or something ridiculous like that. But the real focus that I have is the Art Germ variant, as I'm showcasing there. It's just so good looking. How can you not pick up Art Germ variants when they come out? It's really just, that's the only reason I wanted to show it. Another DC title is Justice League Odyssey #5, which is continuing along after its real serious delay to begin the whole process, but hopefully it's going to continue and actually develop into something that is kind of complementary to the Justice League and the Justice League Dark series, which have really kind of hit their strides. I don't necessarily know what's going on in this because of my hiatus from comic books, so if you guys have a little bit of a insight, hit me up in the comments down below and let me know if it's something I should really read. Headed back over to Marvel, we have Captain America #7, which is Ta-Nehisi Coates still taking on the character, and it looks like he's going to become a fugitive from the government or the country that he loves, which seems to be a relatively common theme for Captain America, whether you're talking about movies or comic books. So we're going to see what Ta-Nehisi Coates does with this, and whether it's something that, you need to read or not so much. Also, we have the Sandman universe, which kicked off again recently, and Books of Magic is going to be hitting issue #4. This is a series or a group of books that I really need to revisit and really kind of dive into in order to get the depth from the original Neil Gaiman work and kind of see how it disperses itself with these new authors and these new takes on this environment. I'm hesitant. I hope that it's really good, and I'll probably give you my thoughts in a future video. However, talking about thoughts, you probably already know my thoughts on Brian Michael Bendis' work during his stint at DC so far, and Action Comics #1007 looks to be taking Superman and teaming him up with Lois Lane, and they're gonna be doing some investigative reporting and super spy kind of stuff, and hopefully it's interesting. I really hope. I know that some people are going to be saying, hey, give this a shot, but I know that some other people are like, oh my god, it's shit. So I'm kind of up in the air. I'm going to give this one a shot just like I gave Superman #7 a shot, but I wouldn't expect it to stick around on the show much longer than that. Of course, there is a fresh book coming from Marvel, and that's X-Force #2, which is a combination of characters that we're all super familiar with. However, I didn't get the chance to read X-Force #1, so I'm going to have to hold off comment until I have the opportunity to do that. But if you are looking for that kind of classic setup from Marvel, this hopefully is going to be some sort of revisiting to that, but I wouldn't necessarily hold my hopes out for that. But back over at DC, we get Flash #63, and this is going to be a story telling the Speed Force kind of tales, which is, well, obviously a Flash story. That's pretty much all they tell in Flash stories these days. But it's going to be kind of like preset versus this whole kind of limited series that they're going to be doing between Batman and Flash as they're determining who is the culprit in Heroes in Crisis. And based on the preview artwork in the prelims, it looks like Gotham Girl is killing everybody. But that's something neither here nor there. We can talk about that later anyway. So, Flash #63, even though I haven't been keeping up with it, it's always been a kind of refreshing read, not necessarily my favorite, but one that I wouldn't pass up if I was a Flash fan. But I am a big Amazing Spider-Man fan, which is why I've been gobbling up anything Spider-related, Spider-Geddon, Spider-Ghost-Gwen, Spider-Force, Spider-Girls, all that kind of stuff. I all picked all that stuff up, and that's probably why Marvel's releasing 17 Spider titles over the next 3 months or whatever the hell it's going to be. But Amazing Spider-Man #14 continues the streak of Nick Spencer writing Amazing Spider-Man, and I wouldn't necessarily call it amazing, but it has been pretty fun, pretty entertaining. He's taking a look at a few pieces of the character that haven't been at the forefront of Peter Parker's personality for quite some time, and the reuniting of Mary Jane is just so good for my heart. But as we kind of lean into this, this is a prelude to the new Hunted storyline, which is going to be kind of a bookend to Kraven's Last Hunt. So Chris Bachalo is going to be doing the art on 14. I would consider that a can't miss. And as we bounce back over to DC, we see one of the last standing titles from DC's New Age of Heroes. In the Terrifics #12, written by Jeff Lemire, and we've got Victor Bogdanovich, or however you say his name. He originally started out doing art on something else. But what we see is that the Terrifics is well, it has been terrific. It's been one of the best books to come out of DC's New Age of Heroes in the aftermath of Dark Knight's Metal. With the cancellation of Damage and the rest of the DC New Age of Heroes lineup, except for maybe the Silencer, it's one of your last bastions for an actual book that ties into Dark Knight's Metal without being something associated with Justice League or anything along those lines. And I've always liked this title. It's one of the few that I really enjoyed out of DC's New Age of Heroes, and I hope it continues, but with everything that's going on at DC, I don't necessarily know how the restructuring is going to impact the lineup that's already smaller than it was last year. However, that won't keep them from producing Justice League Annual #1, which Scott Snyder has said on his Instagram and Twitter that it is a key story for them, and since it's the slaves of the Source Wall and the breaking of the Source Wall is one of the big things that's really been developed by Scott Snyder and how it's introducing all these different concepts into the DC Universe, you gotta consider it a must-buy. It's one of those few annuals that really feels like it is necessary to the story. Batman Annual #1 from Tom King was fantastic, and I would consider that a must-buy, and Justice League Annual hopefully is going to slide into the same kind of stage, but we'll see what's going on. I've got to revisit Justice League pretty hard, so, hit me up in the comments down below and let me know what you want me to focus on specifically. I've got call-outs for Drowned Earth as well as a few other things, but I really need to know what you guys want me to talk about. That being said, I can't help but talk about Heroes in Crisis, and issue #5 is really getting over the midway point of this entire series, and we're starting to see a little bit more concrete evidence when it comes to who has been doing this. There's insinuation that is the AI that is running Sanctuary. There's obviously camps that say Harley Quinn, Booster Gold, somebody completely different. And like I said earlier in the kind of promotional advertising that you've been seeing, hey man, it could be Gotham Girl. She has the potential to do all of this. So she's an outside shot. She'd give her 20-to-1 odds that she's going to be the culprit behind this entire massacre. But we're going to see a little bit more coming up in Heroes in Crisis #5. We also have the idea that Mitch Gerrits is going to be doing some art when it comes to a few of these books, so that just leads me into a really good place when it comes to Heroes in Crisis. Hopefully, the entire culmination of this murder mystery story inside the DC Universe is something that I can really sink my teeth into and really digest and feel good about. Now that we've got all those out of the way, we can talk about the brand new #1s. So we have Age of X-Men Alpha #1, which is leading into what can only be described as a fustercluck of X-Men titles that are going to be coming out over the course of the next few months. And they're not necessarily even specific X-Men titles. You've got Uncanny X-Men, which is going to be concentrating on Cyclops and Wolverine, but these are Age of X-Men titles, and man, I am not super excited for those. It just feels overwhelming, bloated, and in the conclusion of the first 10 issues of Uncanny X-Men, I just don't know anymore. But hopefully you guys are going to find some redeeming qualities in there. I'm going to search my hardest, and I'll let you know. One thing that I am a little bit more interested in is Mysteries of Love in Space #1. And the whole, just for the cover, this cover of Lois Lane falling in love with Darkseid, with the whole Darkseid is the love of my life kind of thing, I just find that hilarious, and I can't wait to see what kind of stories they came up with regarding characters from the DC Universe finding love in space, or however. I just hope that it's nonsensical, humorous, and fun, and it doesn't really need to be reserved as canonical in any kind of way. I'm just hoping for a really fun experience, because Tom King has brought back the romance comic when it comes to Mr. Miracle, and this is just a natural progression. Lastly, we'll talk about Journey into Unknown Worlds #1, which is kind of like a quasi-sci-fi horror comic coming from Marvel, and it's a resurgence, or basically a reinventing, reinvigorating, revisiting of that title for Cullen Bunn, and what it really means to that. And we've got a whole bunch of different titles. You've got the Crypts of Horror and all that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of different classic titles that have been making their way back to Marvel recently, and this is just a continuation of that. Whether it's going to become an ongoing series is still yet to be seen, but you got to take a little bit of advantage of the one-shot. I mean, you got to tell a really good story, get people back into it, so that way maybe there's a little bit more of a market for sci-fi, horror, or any other kind of genre-bending environment that Marvel doesn't really tread in anymore. We also saw that last week with the whole War is Hell storyline, and I can't help but feel nostalgia for these kind of things, even though that was from like the 1940s, but I really like Marvel trying to revisit what they've done in the past and make it fresh and new for this generation of comic book consumers. It does get overwhelming, though, that they have far too many books coming out. But I want to know what you guys think about the books that are coming out this week and what you want me to read, what you want me to review, and talk about. So hit me up in the comments down below, and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.